I think we can start if everybody is ready. We're gonna do our last sprint for today before lunch. And I really hope the knowledge I'm gonna share now, it's actually gonna give you a few ideas of what you can organize inside your student communities. Also offer you a tool that would be useful both while you're a student, in case you have an idea for a team project or for academic project, and later on when you graduate, when you start working for a business or you start your own enterprise. Hopefully that would give you some ideas on what you can use to quickly put something out there to get started and to start gathering people's feedback and maybe their money. Okay, so Firebase. You maybe heard about Firebase. Who heard about Firebase? Okay, perfect. Who used Firebase? Okay, what did you use it for? Like, can you just shout it? What did you use it for? Okay. Okay, awesome. Cool. So what I'm going to do today, I'm going to actually go a little bit over the philosophy of Firebase, what it is, what we're trying to do, and also present a bunch of other products we have besides RTDB, which, in my opinion, should actually give you some ideas right on spot on what else you can do besides just having a really cool real-time database running. Okay, so what is Firebase? Officially, it's Google's client-side application development platform, and our mission is to help developers of all sizes. But what I really like to call it is just hot sauce for your app. Firebase is was really a startup, and we really tried hard to keep the spirit and the voice of Firebase after incorporating it into Google. And while Firebase has a rather deep integration with Google Cloud Platform and is nowadays built up so that it would be a nice product that scales for enterprise customers, we tried to actually persist the spirit of Firebase being, first of all, a cool product, a useful product, something easy, friendly, and efficient to use as a developer, no matter what your skill set is or what you want to build. It's, first of all, your friend. And we have a bunch of things in the Firebase, a bunch of products. Most of the people heard about the real-time database, but it's way, way more. Essentially, what we try to do is offer three pillars, three families of features that would help you get started, then they will help you figure out what's going on, and then hopefully let you grow your business and start making some money. Usually when we present Firebase at a developers event, we focus mostly on this pillar, build better apps. However, there are cases when you will actually want to focus on the drive engagement maybe, and actually share with your friends or with your community how you can actually use tooling to take something that you built at a hackathon, for example, and put it out in the wild, and actually start getting some money or some feedback from real users. So I'll talk a little bit about each of these, and I will focus a little bit more on how to use it as a solution rather than what are the features of the product that we offer. Okay, so usually when you talk Firebase, you talk about cross-platform. And iOS and Android have been the initial platforms that we supported. We added web, and now web is a first-class citizen, so now you can build really well-integrated apps on web. And in particular for hackathon, I think web is a great choice. Because iOS and Android, while really good platforms, they can be a little bit intimidating for people getting started. And web at the same time, web offers you a little bit more flexibility around your toolkit, and it also is a little bit more lightweight, easier to debug. So I would say just most of the time just focus on web. And if you have something more specific that you want to do, there is also a bunch of native support for C++, Unity, and now we have a bunch of open source frameworks out there. I would say whenever you want to start a new project and you need some kind of backend solution, just do a quick Google search, say Firebase, the name of the platform that you already are using or you plan to use, and see if you have, or maybe there is a community contributed SDK for that platform. It should really get you an upstart, and that should allow you to save a couple of days of teamwork by just having all of this set up, mostly set up for you from the ground up. Okay, so that's essentially what Firebase is. Let's go quickly through the products. I'll start with Cloud Firestore. Because real-time database is the most well-known product, a lot of people, when they say Firebase, they start with real-time database. It is great. It's a great product. I, however, would recommend you to actually start with Firestore. Whenever you build something that you think is, might be cool and you want to develop over time, I'll say just start with Firestore, see if you can use this as a backend storage solution, and move away from it if you think it does not fit the bill, if it doesn't really do what you require. But otherwise, just start from here and kind of move in all the directions you need to. And just like RTDB, just like real-time database, it has sync options and real-time, and it's a NoSQL database. So it has a NoSQL limitation, but at the same time, it means it's really fast and it's really easy to use. And one thing that we actually guarantee with Firestore is that everything will be fast. All your queries will be fast. So as long as you can run a query, as long as you can get the data out, it will be fast. So that's one thing you won't have to worry during your demos. The demos will be snappy. And of course, it has offline capabilities, auto-scaling, and a bunch of other cool stuff that will help you grow your project if it is successful. Okay, so just like RTDB, it of course is cross-platform, and it uses cloud to sync up the data in between the devices. Okay, I'm probably gonna skip quickly through why this is cool, but essentially the idea is whenever you start a new thing, there is an infrastructure cost you need to pay. And that only becomes visible once you start building the stuff from the ground up. And for starting any kind of app or any kind of website that does something more than a hello world, usually the infrastructure cost is having all of these components set up. You need some place to store the data. Sooner or later, there will be some data you want to store. You want to be able to access the data through the internet, because usually you'll want your app to work for more than one user. You need, if it's internet, you need to protect it. You need to make sure it's safe. You want to make sure it works across devices. And so all of these start to pop up as you develop a project. And we really try to just take care of most of this and allow you to develop the project up to a level where you can actually ship it or demo it and not have to really worry about this at all. Okay, so so that's in short what Firestore stands for. To really go one more time over it. It's syncing, it works offline, and it has a bunch of cross-platform clients. In order to get started, we have a few good code labs, and I'll provide a link for them at the end of the presentation. You can always also Google for it. Just type in Firebase Code Lab, Firestore. You should have the first result, a link to the code lab, but that's usually how I recommend people to get started with stuff. Just do a workshop step by step, and you'll get a feel of what the entire workflow looks like. And you'll also be able to share this workshop with an audience. So for example, if you want to do a presentation like you've been suggested in the previous talk, you can just take one of those workshops and just do it once for yourself, see if you like it, and then you can run it a second time for your team. It will actually be just as simple. The only thing I would suggest you just look how much time it took you to execute it and multiply it by 2. Just allow you some extra time because when you present it for the first time, because there will be things that you will not predict. Other than this, it will be really simple, and you'll be amazed how simple it is to actually deliver a talk in front of an audience when you're really just sharing your experience. Okay, so next product, which I think is really cool, is Cloud Functions. And in my opinion, Cloud Functions is probably the most useful and important things that we offer in terms of building a real-world application. Of course, storage is important, but storage usually just lets you get started with your app. Sooner or later, you'll need to integrate it with something. You'll need to add some logic that's not being supported out of the box, or you have some third-party API or something else that you need to integrate with. And that's where the ability to run code without having to worry too much about deploying it will actually both help you a lot and make your life easier and your team's life easier, and also make essentially any idea you have buildable using a rather small amount of code and a rather compact number of technology. So functions would allow you to run some code in the cloud. Currently, it supports JavaScript and TypeScript. There are ways to run other kind of code, which is supported in Google Cloud Platform, and Firebase Cloud Function actually run on Google Cloud Platform. So there's a way to actually extend this beyond what's supported. But for a start, I would say just if you're comfortable with JavaScript or TypeScript, that's probably a really good solution, and you don't really have to worry about too much else. And you have the triggers, which essentially allows you to do stuff as a result of things happening in the Firebase environment. For example, writing data to the database or users logging into your app. And it also offers support for HTTP APIs for essentially filling in the gaps, usually for filling in the gaps for stuff that the database doesn't offer. So for example, if you have an app which allows people to do, for example, create a shopping list, but suddenly you realize you want them to be able to search through a broad range of products, and you realize that Firestore, while can show you the list of products, is not great at search at full text search. Then the simple solution would be just create a cloud function that would offer this API of full text search, put something in the cloud running somewhere there and doing the indexing for you, and you use the cloud function to actually connect your database to wherever search engine you have, and to connect your user to the search engine. So whenever you find yourself essentially limited from doing what you want to do because it's not supported by your platform of choice, that's what can help you very quickly make this problem disappear. And yeah, and the cool thing is it runs in the cloud without you having to worry about managing servers. So you don't really have to provision servers and have to think about scaling. You just deploy the function, and it will be running. And most of the time, it will be enough for you to have this logic deployed and working. Okay, of course, there are some considerations, and we have best practices for making sure your code is secure and it runs across platforms, and it has a business logic, and it's easy to call, and it also offers the option of not having to worry about some other things, like for example running expensive code on the user's computer if maybe their mobile phones are slow, or maybe they don't want to have a lot of code running in there. For example, when you do machine learning, that kind of stuff. Okay, so this is Cloud Functions, and it really offers you the glue in between all of the different products. And some examples are Authentication that we'll look in a minute, Firestore, Analytics, and a bunch of other third parties. Third parties could be the Google Cloud Platform products like PubSub or machine learning stuff, or it could be third parties from outside. For example, APIs to integrate with GitHub or Twilio or so on. And what's really cool is that you can also, when you sign up, you can run this code usually for free. Normally, when you sign up to Google Cloud Platform, there are all kinds of promotion running all the time. So normally, you have the option to find and get some credits. So you should really have the option to actually try it out and not have to worry about things like paying, at least while you're developing the ideas, while you're working with your team, while you're doing the hackathon. You should be able to run all of this without having to worry about billing and that kind of stuff. I get this question a lot, like what if I don't have a credit card and I don't want to provide one? Usually you can just sign up for GCP and a lot of the time there'll be different options to just run it for free. Sometimes we'll also be giving credits, so just come to us and ask, oh, we want to do this, like, do you have any promos from us? Okay, I won't stop really too much here about this. I'll just talk a little bit about auth. So why auth? Why auth is so important? Even though we don't always state it in our presentation, it goes without saying that authentication is probably the first thing you want to think about as soon as you start gathering any kind of user data. It's not critical at this moment when you're just building a hackathon app, but it's a good habit to have. Just when you set up your app, just think of security first. As soon as you create a database, don't allow it to be publicly accessible, because people sometimes might just screw up your database unintentionally. They might not realize that they just did something bad. So instead, just secure everything from the beginning, and auth should really allow you to do this. It provides a broad range of sign-in options, and it also has support for anonymous sign-in, which essentially is just one line of code saying, oh, okay, I don't want to deal with signing in the user right now, so I'll just use anonymous without asking them for anything, and I'll figure it later on if I need a password on the user or not. So here would be my recommendation would be just anytime you use Firebase, just use auth and use the simplest auth option that works for your case, and everything will be fine. Always secure a database, always secure a file storage. That should be probably the first step. Okay, and yeah, and this should be easy because we offer all the different options, and we offer also the anonymous way to sign in. And all of these options, in the end, they look quite simple. Like when you work with Firebase auth, you'll see that it doesn't really matter how you authenticate your users. The way you'll write your security roles and you implement your code, it's very similar on all these cases. Okay. So cloud storage, it's essentially a database for your big assets. Whenever something is too big to put in a database, just drop it in a storage bucket. That's about it. It scales just as well. It has good speed thanks to caching. And normally, since you won't need to query the data inside your files, you usually just want to download or upload it. That's usually what you'll need. Okay, so yeah, let's quickly go through the rest of the products, and then I'll let you go, and we can have a Q&A session. Okay, hosting is what it is. It's just hosting. One of the cool things about Firebase hosting is it automatically works over HTTPS. So it is secured by default, and that should be also a big deal. Whenever you're developing something, like I said, security is utterly important nowadays. So always make sure whenever you host your stuff, just make sure it's over an SSL connection. We, of course, offer it by default here. We of course, enforce it with Firebase hosting. And also, you get a free Firebase subdomain for your app, or you can use your own to make things extra fancy. MLKit, I think, is one of my favorite things. It deserves a presentation on its own. I would say just whenever you want to add a little bit of machine learning sparkle, just check it out. There are quite a few solutions that just work for standard things out of the box. Or if you don't find exactly what you need, you almost always can find a custom model or build a custom model and just upload it. One thing to note is if you actually can use one of the things out of the box, it's actually good because these models are optimized to have a really good accuracy in the cloud when if for example, you process the image using the online capabilities, and they're also optimized to be really snappy and efficient on the user device. So the models are quite small when deployed to the phones, and are usually more bigger and more accurate when running in the cloud. When you run custom models, you'll have to deal with this yourself. You'll have to figure out where to run those and how to do this on your own. If you can use one of the pre-built ones, you just don't really have to worry about this. Okay. Yeah, Crashlytics. With Crashlytics, I usually just set it up and forget about it. That's about it. When I create an app, if it's an Android or an iOS app, I just set it up, first thing, make the app crash, make sure that I get a report over email, and then I forget about it. And only come back to it when I actually have an issue and want to figure out what's going on. Okay, performance. Performance is probably a good thing later on. It's probably something that you won't be using right away when you start building a project, but something that is good once you start running it as a real project. Test lab, the same. You probably won't be using it right away. Probably in the beginning we'll just do some simple test automation, but over time you'll want to do cross-platform, so it might become really useful for you. Analytics, same like with Crashlytics, it just works. I recommend people just to keep analytics enabled when they create a project because you don't have to remember later on to turn it on. And it actually works. It will register all your page navigation, all the standard stuff that you'll be interested by default, and you can add custom stuff later on. Cloud messaging, that's something, in my opinion, a little bit more specific for people who want to do push notifications, that kind of stuff. We get a lot of feedback from developers saying how much it actually helped them. And really, if you need to do any kind of push notifications, you should try this. It will literally save you tons and tons of time. Okay, remote config and remote config is essentially for I would say usually it's used to do feature launching and that kind of stuff. So I would say probably if you do a hackathon, you probably don't care about remote config. And once you start running things with your friends or customers and you get some analytics, you'll probably use remote config to do things like pushing some stuff for some people and so on, or pushing new versions. Dynamic links is a really cool integration feature. Yet again, it's when you start to grow your app, you'll maybe want to do some QR codes that will link to your app and that kind of stuff. And here, dynamic links will just really make your life easier in not having to deal with having to think about how you do all this redirection, all the input, where you store the place where the user came from before they installed the app and so on. It's a really useful tool when you start to have different channels that people come through and start using your app or product or whatnot. A/B testing is the same. You have customers, you want to test a new feature, we try to help you out with that. Predictions. I think prediction is cool that you can actually figure out who is using your app and might stop using it, for example. The churn prediction is really cool for that. We use some machine learning magic there, and it essentially is a good tool to help you increase your stickiness of your customers, so people actually use your stuff more often and they don't go away. It can also be used for a bunch of other things, but it will need extra configuration. And yeah, that's in a very compact nutshell all the products we have. The first few that I talked about were developer stuff, and then I quickly moved on to the grow pillar, to more of a businessy products. I hope you'll find it really useful, and I hope you'll remember about this when you need it. Other than this, you can always go and use something else, and you can always combine something else with Facebook, like with Firebase. You don't have to only use one thing. You can always go combine a few technologies and just see what works best for you. And I think that's the secret sauce. Just trying out a few different things and committing to one that makes more sense for you after you made sure this is your best option. As a next step, I would just recommend you to check out some code labs and getting started guide, and that should give you a good impression of how it feels like to use Firebase and what it does really well, and how much time you would need to run something on it. Usually, it should not be more than a day. And if you have any other questions, I'll be hanging around here with this t-shirt for a while. Usually, we're wearing really visible yellow t-shirts. Today, I'm a little bit more incognito. So we're just wearing the Firebase developer t-shirts. You can probably get one of these if you show up at one of our events.